If you're thinking about investing or developing real estate in Philadelphia, understanding the zoning code is pretty much everything to get started. Understanding the difference between RSA-5, RM-1, CMX2, IRMX could mean the difference between hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential profit or loss. And in this video, I just want to break down the key zoning code designations in Philly, what they mean, and how they can impact your investment strategy. I work with developers, investors, builders every single day to help them find the right land opportunities, analyze zoning, and navigate the development process in Philly. And I've personally gone through the zoning variance process for my own development projects, and I've helped people to really avoid costly mistakes just by understanding the basics of the zoning. You would be shocked how many people buy a property, especially early investors who haven't done a lot of deals, and they don't really even know what you can do with the land. So let's get into it. My name is Mark Gabriel, your local real estate agent here in Philadelphia, and I want to provide you with as much information as possible about development in the city of Philadelphia. So if you are looking to invest in Philadelphia, definitely shoot me an email or drop a comment below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So first off, why does zoning matter? Well, zoning determines what you can actually build on a parcel. So if you don't have a full understanding of the zoning, or you just get it wrong, your project is not going to be approved. For example, if you're looking at land that is only zoned for one single family home, but you submit permits to build a triplex, you're just not going to get that project approved. And your architect's going to tell you that right off the bat, because architects do have a really good understanding of the zoning code. But the purpose of this video is to help you avoid mistakes as far as just buying a piece of land and thinking that you can do one thing with it and then finding out later that you can't, and losing money, because that happens every day where people buy a piece of land, there's a triplex next door, so they think they can build a triplex, and then they come to find out that it's only zoned for a single family home, or maybe it's not even zoned for a single family home, maybe it's zoned for an industrial use. So this is just really important to understand before you buy an investment in Philly. Secondly, Philadelphia does have zoning code overlays, so some properties may have additional rules that go beyond the base zoning code. So you may have something that's zoned for a certain use, but because of the overlay, there are other restrictions in that area that are only going to allow you to do certain things. So not only knowing the zoning code, but also just knowing whether there's overlays in that area is very important. And one awesome resource that you can use is Atlas. Atlas is the Philadelphia website that compiles all of the zoning data and public record data for properties in Philadelphia, and you can easily access it for any property in the city to see what the zoning designation is. And it'll also pull up if there's any overlays in that area, and it'll also tell you things like whether there's permits pulled on the property, whether the property has any violations, what the tax assessments are. So Atlas has a ton of really great data for you when it comes to zoning. So let's quickly cover the most common residential zoning codes. So the first one that I want to hit is RSA-5. This is pretty much the most common residential zoning you're going to find, and it's for single family townhomes. So if you find a parcel that is zoned RSA-5, most likely you're going to be able to just build a traditional attached townhome like you would see in most of Philadelphia. That is the base level zoning code. Typically, you can go up to 38 feet on RSA-5 lots, and there may be some setback requirements. For example, if both of the properties next door to you are two-story properties, you may have to set your third story back just because they put those laws into the zoning code so your property doesn't really stick out like a sore thumb on the street of all two stories. So RSA-5 is the most common base single family zoning code. RM-1 is the next one that you're going to find, which is a step up from your standard residential. And RM1 is really for multifamily buildings. And depending on the lot square footage, you're going to be able to know how many units you can build on an RM1 lot. So typically in areas that don't have other overlays, up to 1440 square feet lots, you can build a 4-unit building. And then for every 420 square feet of lot square footage above that, you can build 1 additional unit. So RM1 is a calculation as far as depending on how big the lot is, it'll tell you how many units you can actually build on that land. And this is just for a standard residential multifamily. So you're not going to find this in areas that are really commercial mixed use. This is going to be mostly infilled into neighborhoods, not on commercial strips, but places that the city has identified for a little bit more density and a little bit more apartment units. So RSA-5 and RM1 are really the zoning designations that most of the smaller scale investors are looking for. These are investors who are looking to do townhome developments, renovations, and do flips and things along those lines, or build smaller multi-unit buildings. You might find an RM1 lot that's way, way larger where someone can do 30 or 40 units. But again, because both of these zoning designations are capped at 38 feet, this isn't really where you're going to see like large commercial buildings getting built, skyscrapers, things along those lines. This is really just your base residential for either low density or middle density in Philadelphia. So moving over to some of the basic commercial designations, the first one you're going to see is CMX1. CMX1 is mostly on the corner of residential blocks, and you're mostly going to find corner stores and small businesses in this zoning designation. And CMX1 takes on the zoning of the building next door in most cases. So if you have CMX1 with an RM1 building next door, you could actually apply that RM1 designation to the CMX1 building. So that's a good thing to know if you're looking for development opportunities. A step up from CMX1 is CMX2. This is going to be where you can find lower density mixed use buildings. So it allows for ground floor commercial and then residential above, but there is still a height limit at 38 feet. So you're really still only looking at 3 to 4 story buildings. This isn't your large commercial building that you're seeing in Center City. This is more so, again, property that you're going to find on the corner of commercial strips in different neighborhoods. You'll see some CMX2 in Point Breeze, in East Passyunk, in West Passyunk, and even in Fishtown and Northern Liberties. This is a pretty common commercial zoning designation. CMX 2.5 is a higher density commercial designation. So as you get to 2.5, now you're doing commercial on the first floor and you're doing residential above, but you can get up to many more stories here. So it's still not going to be a skyscraper, but it's probably going to be a mid-rise building. You could probably do 5, 6 stories here on CMX2. And CMX 2.5 is a great zoning designation for commercial strips. I really like to look at which commercial strips in the city have this zoning designation because it does allow for a lot quicker and more rapid growth and also sustainability of the businesses below, because you have more density above the businesses, which just means more people there to support the businesses on the ground floor. So some of the best commercial strips in the city have this zoning and they've done really, really well. So think East Passyunk, Frankfurt Ave in Fishtown. And some of these strips in the city also have CMX3 zoning, which is the next step up. So CMX3 you'll see in also some of these areas that I mentioned, but also a lot more in Center City as you get into Old City, You'll see it in Northern Liberties. You'll see it in parts of Rittenhouse. And this is a higher density residential mixed use. You could also do strictly residential on CMX3. So some larger apartment buildings that just have a lot of amenity space are CMX3. We've also seen larger condo buildings get built on CMX3. And we've also seen townhomes get built on CMX3, but that is a lot less common. CMX3 is also the base level zoning that you need for short-term rentals in the city. So it's become a lot more popular ever since they changed the short-term rental laws in Philly, because CMX3 is considered your hotel zoning. So if you find a CMX3 parcel that is developable, you can actually build a hotel or even a boutique short-term rental building on that land. So how do you use zoning to maximize your investment potential and actually find deals? So you're going to want to look for underutilized zoning. So this could be a lot that is CMX2 that is currently a single family townhome. What happens in the city is the city planners basically every so often will take a look at the zoning map of the city, and they will rezone certain areas depending on what they feel that the long-term use should be and what they ultimately want the city plan to look like in that area. So you will find properties in the city that used to be zoned for single family and now they are zoned maybe a higher designation. You'll also find the opposite, where there is a building that is grandfathered in as a multi-unit, but now it is only zoned for a single family residential property. So that's why it's really important to know the zoning code, because you could also buy a multi-unit building that you think is zoned to do multi-units, and really if you go to redevelop it, it's only zoned for single family, and if they don't have the right rental licenses, you may not be able to actually keep it as a multi-unit. So there's a lot of things that can save you just by knowing the zoning code. And by knowing the zoning code, you're also going to know if a property needs a variance. And if it does need a variance, you need to be prepared for that process. So this is a process that I personally have gone through with a 6-unit apartment building that I developed with a partner. The land was zoned RSA-5, which was only for one single family home. We could have either subdivided it to get a couple single family homes, but we felt that because of the use of other nearby parcels that were multi-units, it would be best to do a multi-unit on this parcel because it was a pretty large piece of land. And it took a while for us to get the variance. And granted, we went through this process during COVID, so there were a lot more delays than you'd probably find right now, but it took probably the better portion of 9 to 12 months when all was said and done to actually receive the approval that we needed. And that took a few rounds of going out and engaging with the neighborhood and basically getting neighborhood support for the project that we were going to build, and also going in front of the community organizations and getting shot down once or twice before we really hit the right development that the neighborhood saw fit for that parcel. And then we also had to go in front of the zoning board and get the final approval. So it can be a lengthy process if you're going through a variance. So just be aware of that. And you really need to assemble a team of a great zoning attorney and architect in order to help you get the variance. And they really need to know the zoning code inside and out so that they can tell you up front whether or not it's likely for you to actually get approved for the variance. If they don't think you're going to get approved for the variance, chances are you won't, and you will just be wasting time and money. So it's really important to talk to those partners and get an understanding of that up front. So those are some of the basics of zoning in Philadelphia. So if you're thinking about investing or developing real estate in Philadelphia, definitely drop a comment below or reach out to my email if you have any questions specifically about zoning. I do help investors and developers find deals and navigate zoning all the time. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and definitely don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you felt that this video was helpful. I will catch you next time.